Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Local Podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And my name is Rich.
Yay!
Yay! What are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what's going on anymore. It gets to about 9 o'clock and we just start losing our shit. It's just like... So, although I am pumped up for this podcast, I'm very excited about it, yeah.
That's good.
Just because I've been playing Daytona and it makes...
Daytona!
Yeah, it makes you feel...
It makes you smile.
All that ways, doesn't
it does.
Like you said in the last podcast, anything that's like a Sega Blue Sky, like... They must have known when they were picking out certain colours. Like they were like, this is like an addiction to this colour somehow. It
just makes everything better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Do you think that other parts of the world that are sunnier than the UK will feel the same way about those?
They just get sick of it. Another glorious day.
Like they really enjoy it, like when it rains.
Yeah.
Like a
I hate living in paradise. I yearn for some snow.
Yeah. Well, anyway, fuck you guys because you listen to this podcast and we are having sunny Daytona this week. But also, we might be having some snow on your side of the table. I don't know. You tell me. What have you been playing?
I've been playing, and I have to check this because I always get it wrong. 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker.
So, I imagine that might have some inclement weather in it. Oh, right, okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you go first this week? This is still part of our Drive January, guys. Yep. So usually, I would say to Rich, I'm really excited to hear a review about this. I am not excited in the slightest to hear about your review of the 18-wheeler game. I was like, when you told me this is what you played, I was like... So really, ambivalent would be the best.
So as promised, I did go through various ones to think, okay, well, how loose an interpretation could I put on this? And like train simulators. I very nearly picked up a train simulator to talk at you. I very nearly picked up one that was a train simulator that was basically like a kind of interactive movie.
Oh, what's that?
It's literally just like they had a camera filming out of the front of a train. And you control the start and the stop, and that's basically it.
Oh, right, okay. Is that not kind of what train sims are like? The one time I played a train simulator game, I could not, on the tutorial, get a train to start.
Well, I was willing to find out, but didn't in the end, because I kind of got absorbed with a couple of other things.
Give me trucks.
So yes, 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker. This is on the Gamecube from 2002.
Oh, okay. I'm infinitely more interested now. I thought this is just a random shit game you picked up on Steam Deck.
Oh no, my friend.
Okay.
This is a port of a Sega arcade game.
Oh, okay.
By Acclaim. So, is yeah, exactly. Strong start. You can kind of feel the nosedive. It's good. Mm-hmm. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's all right. I enjoyed my time with it. I'm making it sound like a relative that I put up with who is now dead. How can I dig myself out of this hole? Right, okay. So last time I talked about Sega Rally and how it was that kind of like that era of Sega that had Sega Blue Skies, big polygons, everything was a bit OTT and all that. This is kind of tail end of that era, right? So the idea is you have to drive from New York to California. In each of the stages, you'll have various stops on the way, and you have a time limit to work with. You've got a rival truck that you're racing against. There's slipstreaming. They get on the CB radio and taunt you as you go around.
I was just about to ask. I hope there was taunting or sledging or something.
Bonus time from ramming certain vans off the road. This is peak Sega arcade ridiculously. The trucks have, I think, 2 gears, like high and low. Oh, reverse as well. I think they might have. But the tactics are basically knowing when to shift up and when to shift down.
Okay.
You got 5 drivers with different stats. So yeah, there's a little bit more meat on the bones than Sega Rally when I was talking about it, but not much more.
Hey, you just need 3 gears, man. That's all you need.
You have a lot of country and blues, playing on the radio and all that. Lots of sort of rock and roll shuffling going around. besides the kind of standard arcade mode, you've got like a versus mode and like score attacks. The one that got me that I really was not expecting to be as like absorbed by as I was the parking mini game.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome.
So like you still have your 18-wheeler like trailer and all that, but you're going around really tight little courses in like multi-story car parks and stuff like that, going through these checkpoints, like reversing into the spot, and then it's like, okay, good, and then you move on to the next one, and you have to hit the next checkpoint, parking very carefully, and you like lose time from like hitting crates or the wall or any of that stuff on the way around. So like, rather than just going hell for leather up and down highways, suddenly it becomes this really tight, really narrow, really like
doing the HGV license test.
Well, not even that. Weirdly, you talking last time about Rallycross made me think, oh, actually, shit, that's like the parking bit, like the equivalent of the parking minigame from 18-wheeler. Because it, like, sure, it's not as technical or as detailed. How could it be? But like, it's that same notion of just like really scaling it down and making it really, really tight and technical. Beyond that, there's not a heck of a lot to talk about. There genuinely isn't a heck of a lot to talk about.
What's your destination again? Where you're driving from and to?
You're going from New York to California.
All right, okay, fair enough.
Like, there are a couple of nice graphical touches in it. So like, if you're in the sort of cab view, my dad would be so disappointed in me. He loves trucks. If you're in the cab view, you've got a lot of tat on the dashboard, right? Like sunglasses and a hat and all this kind of stuff, and it all moves around like independent of the cab as you like go around corners and stuff like that.
Like a weapon's gonna like smash you in the face.
Yeah, well, not quite like that, but like it just like it's a nice little immersive touch, right?
I'm immersed. I take it all back from the start of the podcast. This sounds incredible.
So, like, it's dirt cheap to get. It's really entertaining for what you get. Like, I've written here, like, this... If I had rented it back in the day, like, this is exactly the kind of game that I would have looked back on really, really fondly. I think if you'd bought it at full price, I could see why you'd be a bit miffed, right? But, like, full disclosure, it was a game that I played maybe once, maybe twice in an arcade, and it always kind of, there was just that little voice in the back of my head that was like, you remember that trucking game? Yeah, I remember that trucking game. And I think maybe I might have rented it once or twice back in the day, but like the point is that even just from playing it a little while, it sunk its claws in and just kind of became this thing that I was like, here I am 20 odd years later, and I went, you know what? Like, I will pick it up for a few quid. Sure, why not? And yeah, like, it's fun. It's never going to win any... I mean, it didn't win any awards, as far as I know.
Trucking awards, that's
but, like, for what you get, and for, like, a little bit of entertainment for a few hours, like, hey, well away. So, yeah, like, it's just dumb fun, really. Yeah. Like, there is... I wish there was more I could talk about with it, but there kind of isn't.
I don't know. I feel like, you know... question... from what you remember, maybe playing once, twice in the arcade, it sounds like there's a hell of a lot more in this experience than there would have been able to access in the arcade, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure the parking minigame was in there.
No.
In the arcade. I think it was just the start here, go here.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think where I played it didn't even have a versus mode. I think it was just the one cab on its own kind of thing.
Okay.
So, like, yeah, there is a little bit of extra stuff as far as I'm concerned, at least. But yeah, like, it's, in fact, you know, like Crazy Taxi as well, when you barrel around and there's things flying everywhere and all that kind of, like, it does all that, like, things explode and shit, all this.
I was going to say, like, how aggressive do you need to be with your rival? Do you need to, like...
You can be pretty aggressive. Like, if you will sort of lose time and slow down if you ram into stuff that you probably shouldn't be, but, like, you are barreling all over the shop, like, stuff's flying left, right and centre. It's utter chaos at times. So, like, it's not taking itself seriously in any way, shape or form, and it really shouldn't.
I was going to say, how is this comparative to Carmageddon 64?
Infinitely better. Yeah. Like, it knows what it is. It knows it's utterly ridiculous, and it's fine with it. It's comfortable in its own skin, to carry on the laboured party analogy from the other episode. Like, it's it's just fun. Like, it's dumb as a pile of bricks, but it's fun.
Nice.
So, like, score-wise, it is a bit of a problem for me.
It sounds like a bit of a problem, and I like to see you squirm when it comes to these kind of things, because it's like, you know, clearly it sounds like the most fun ever, but objectively,
like, I can imagine that a lot of people, there are probably a bunch of problems with the port itself that I didn't spot. You know, I can imagine that, like I say, if you were back in 2002 and you were paying full price for it, or near as damn it, like, I think you would probably look at it and go, like, am I getting my money's worth out of this? And I think it's quite telling that you can get it as cheap as you can now. However, it for me kind of feels like one of those games that, for the price you will pay now, assuming you already have the Gamecube and what have you, and it's not going to be the extra outlay. Yeah. I mean, there might be somebody out there, but I'd be very surprised if anybody bought a Gamecube specifically to play this. And I imagine, actually, you could probably get it quite cheap on a PS2 or something like that as well. So, like,
I feel like I've seen the front of the cover now.
You probably have. It's one of those ones that seems to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm reasonably confident in saying that I'm pretty sure I saw it in bargain bins pretty quickly after it came out. You know, it's one of those. But, like, yeah, I'm not saying that there's no problems with it at all, because, I mean, of course there are. Like, how could there not be? It's an acclaimed game. But, like, it's serviceable. It really is. Like, and 5 feels harsh, right? I think realistically, if you're trying to talk about it objectively in the cold light of day and all that kind of stuff, I think a sort of 5 or a 6 is realistic. I am going to give it a 6.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people would just look at the number on the page and go, oh, well, that's a shit game, I'm going to write it off. Like, please, do not do that. Like, at least give it a go. If there is a way that you can play it, give it a crack. And I can imagine that there will be at least a few people out there that would go, actually, you know what? This is all right. I'm kind of on board with it. You don't need to play it for long. You don't need to be, like, hosing it for, like, entire weeks of your life or anything like that. But for a quick, like, in-out, like, it does the job.
You've managed to speak to that game for about 11 minutes or so, and that's impressive.
Thanks.
Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, you know, in itself, well done. Yeah, I'm happy with that kind of score. That sounds like, you know, like you say, 6 out of 10 is not that bad for, you know, in the overall scheme of things. And I feel like that you say, that'd be kind of game that I imagine if I could go back in time, it'd be like you get a rental game and play it with your mates all weekend or something.
Yeah,
just like do that stupid stuff. I remember doing that, like I've mentioned before, the podcast was like G1 Jockey or something like that.
Oh,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
do ridiculous games like that where it's like they're not the best games in the world, but you have a hell of a lot of fun.
But you will absolutely enjoy it. Like, yeah, it's exactly that kind of game. And I think, as much as anything, the part of the reason that I'm this enthusiastic about it is that it is exactly that kind of game that I just find so difficult to find now. Like, it's rare. Arcade racers in general are a little bit thin on the ground. Sure, there are some indie developers flying the flag and all that. Like, I get it, but like this specific kind of like high chaos Sega Blue Skies chunky polygon kind of game feels like a rarity. So I think that's kind of endeared it to me a little bit more, if anything.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So let's stay in the USA then, and let's stay on the arcade trail. And I don't want to necessarily sort of run over any of the ground that you ran over from Sega Rally, but I guess I'm going to in a little way, in so much that I asked the question and said, I asked the question, what else do you play in the arcade? Knowing fine well it was a loaded question. You answered it, And so, Daytona.
Say it properly.
Yeah, Daytona.
Thank you.
Let's go away. I genuinely
good.
I had that on in the car. What that is? On my
you
Spotify,
should.
And the kids in the car were like, oh, "Please turn this off, Daddy." You can't not love, and you can't not. If you ever stepped into an arcade in the early to mid 90s, sort of 1994 when it came out, there's no way you wouldn't hear a Daytona machine.
That is true.
They had such a clever way of drawing you in, and I've already spoke about it in the podcast in our 93 or 4 episodes that we've done so far, at one point somewhere, and said that the machine I'd probably buy to put in my house when I'm a millionaire guaranteed will be a 2-seat cab Daytona. It's just and not have it turned off at any time of the day, just have the music blaring out, just constantly on the demo screen going around, just because I could. And I'd walk past it and feel the same feeling, where I'd be like, oh, yeah, there we go, Daytona.
Just the thought of, like, at your wake or whatever. Oh, yeah. Do you remember Fazz?
No, he's buried inside the machine. He's in there. He's in the cab somewhere. Yeah, don't put coins in there.
They're rolling your coffin away. Daytona!
Let's go away. But yeah, it just... I love seeing... So whenever you go to Ninja Warrior UK, that is, I go and take my 3-year-old Rowan to the soft play there. Like, they've got a tiny little area where they've got an arcade sort of corridor, and they've got Daytona there.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm so happy when I see it. It's just like, it's obviously always lost on Rowan. Rowan's just like, prodding,
It's got a stupid song from your car, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Prodding at the basketballs. And what's with licensed basketball, Pac-Man and Sonic? Like, as in, like, they seem to be everywhere. I don't know why it has to be a specific sort of like, oh, here's a Sonic basketball game. Like, when's Sonic ever been a basketball player? It's just like...
Good question.
Yeah, a little bit annoying. I can see Pac-Man, because the balls can look like Pac-Man. But the Sonic ones, anyway.
I don't know, weirdly, I think, for me, it sits more comfortably with Sonic.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, 90s hedgehog with chewed.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, but that's what's in the corridor, a Ninja Warrior, in the arcade corridor. So yeah, I just... There's a certain nostalgic feeling that I get from that, which will become apparent as I review this game. So I have been playing on the Daytona USA 2001 version from the Dreamcast. I have been emulating this on something called Flycast on my Logitech. Logitech.
I would have said Logitech.
Logitech would make
way Logic technology.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I don't know if that's true or if I'm making that up.
That's definitely true. So on my Logitech G Cloud that I picked up before Christmas. Now, I have touched on this a little bit in terms of... I did say I was going to come back to it and talk through, and I don't give a proper review of it, but certainly it definitely feels like something that if you look it up, the reviews are really, really positive from users, but critically it was kind of panned, and really? I'd say the reason for that mostly is just completely... mostly price point based. I would think they seem to just priced it incorrectly. I don't know, it must have been how much it cost to make it, or it still sits now. I mean, in the Black Friday sale you could kind of get one for £250 new in the UK. It sits now at £290. I got mine used, obviously taking a risk with that, from CEX when I traded some other stuff in, and it was £180 unboxed. But it's come in great condition. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It works perfectly, looks perfect. It's got no stains or anything at all. I got like a B grade, and it's brilliant. I've had no problems with it at all whatsoever.
You realise in the Hollywood version of this conversation, one of your kids is like slamming it into the floor, pouring orange juice on it.
Make it stop, Daddy! Yeah, no, that's probably happening. Well, this is the thing, you see. So, Oscar, my 7-year-old, he's like, oh, can I play Minecraft? And I've only really... I mean, I know I could buy it on 1,000 times over. I've got it on, like, the Vita, and I've got it on my Xbox. And I'm like, oh, you could... I've thought about it, thinking, oh, you could play it like handheld on my Logitech, but I don't want to give him it, so I'm not going to do that. Just buy him on the Switch and pay more money to Minecraft and Mojang. So yeah, the reason I got this is because when I started dabbling with the Razer Kishi last year on my phone, and I thought, actually, this works pretty well for Game Pass Ultimate. And then I don't know how I kind of came across this, really. It's because I was really, really jealous of you and Hakers having your Steam Decks, and I was like, but I don't want to pay £400 to £500 a Steam Deck. And then I saw that I think I'd said this previous, the ROG Ally maybe was on offer for £400, I think, over Christmas, and I was like, do I just shell out for it because I'm going to use it anyway? And I thought, no, I'm going to try it with this sort of cloud streaming device because of the fact that I do use Game Pass Ultimate quite a lot. And then I noticed that, actually you can also use it for Google Play, and it is an Android tablet effectively baked into a controller.
Oh, okay, right.
So yeah, it's not super powerful per se, and it doesn't have a lot of storage. But that's not the point of it. Almost in a way, I think that's what they're banking on. Really, I see a lot of people asking for a new version now. That I think they want a more powerful version of it, but when I look around, like I say, in terms of user reviews, they're kind of glowing, and I totally can see why that would be, because it's so just so useful. Like, I have a really, even though it isn't necessarily powerful, an actual everyday use to be able to play my Xbox on my lap with a really good controller that's really lightweight, like way lighter than when I've held a Steam Deck before. And the form factor and the controller, it's really, really good. I have bought a couple of sort of like the rubber sort of nubbins, if you will, for the controller, for the analog sticks and stuff, to give me a little bit more grip. And that seems I wasn't experiencing little grip anyway, but I just saw people say you should get some of those and it'll really help, and it has. In terms of the screen, it's absolutely top notch. It's not an OLED, don't get me wrong, but it is really, really good, really clear. You can play 1080p cloud streaming, which that's as good as it gets, really. It's pretty much. It's like so. And not only can you do Xbox, like I say, and also Google Play, you can also, if you have a gaming PC, so you can use your Steam library. You can stream with GeForce Now, and also. Thank you very much for the donation. You donated your PlayStation 4 to me. Yeah. Thank you very much. The PlayStation 4 also does Remote Play too. So that's what I've been using it for, really.
Nice.
And it's really, really good. That is in the Remote Play, I think, is a little bit muddier. I think it must be a little bit of a lower resolution than the cloud streaming, which I would have put that the other way around. Do you know what I mean? I would have thought that actually... but that must be the power of the actual thing itself.
I think if I remember rightly, whenever I've dabbled with doing like the sort of Sony remote play stuff, it never really gelled well with me. It always seemed to be a pretty low quality, no matter how I was trying to do it and what connections and that. So I don't know if that's connections I was using or if that's just how Sony have built it.
Yeah,
I imagine by 2025, I imagine that it's just the way that Sony built it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. So, speaking of Sony, they've got the PlayStation Portal, and it's easy for me to say this, but I don't, because you can remote play on this. So, Logitech G Cloud is officially supported by Xbox, but there is an app that you can buy for £5 that is in, and it's a legitimate app. It's not nothing underhanded or anything like that. It makes it very easy for you to remote play on your PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. And from what I can tell, I've never played on a Portal, and I'm not saying it's defunct or anything, but if you can play, if you wanted to have a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you don't have to have an Xbox. That is in, so you could literally have Game Pass Ultimate on this, and also you could, remote play your PlayStation games as well, PlayStation 4 and 5, which just feels like a no-brainer almost in a way. It's really, really good. The battery life is huge. It's like 12 hours. It's massive. I'm so shocked that I played so much of this. So I played, like I say, EAWRC quite a lot, and then I've been playing quite a lot of retro game emulation, and I've played hours and hours and hours and hours, and I've been like, where's this battery coming? I don't understand it. It's incredible. So yeah, it does. Again, I think what people want really as well is so it emulates at the moment up to PlayStation 1 and PSP, which I was reliably informed PSP could run on Lemon by someone on the internet. So that's why I was like, why is it doing such a good job with PSP? But apparently PlayStation 2 and Gamecube it starts to struggle with a little bit. So I think that's why it's probably people are like, actually that's what I'd like to be able to emulate as well. So it just... There are, like I said, there are some negatives, that is in the fact that you can't really get any storage on there, and you have to be on Wi-Fi all the time. Obviously, that's just the stick of it, really. And there's a weird thing with vibration, where it clearly has a vibrate capability. Like, it vibrates when it tells me I've got a message or something like that. Of which, actually, by me getting this pre-owned, weirdly, I still got 3 months free of Game Pass with it. So I was like, oh, right, okay. Well, that's just saved me £45. So effectively, it's worth more already to me. Like, as in, I just picked it up, and like, literally, just because I signed in through Logitech, it was like, oh, have 3 months free Game Pass. Brilliant, thanks very much. So yeah, it does have a vibration, but whenever you play, it doesn't vibrate with a game, so it's not quite like playing with your Xbox controller, which is a bit weird. And I think that's probably, they just couldn't quite get that to work with the weight and how it's so slender. It's really thin as well. Like, as in, I think that they maybe made a bit of a decision, or haven't, and they've just not thought about it. Like, as in, to be able to make it, I don't know what as tactile as a full Xbox controller. And I think maybe that's why I think Xbox know it as well, almost. And remember, we discussed previously, maybe a few months ago, we were like, oh, an Xbox handheld would be a great idea. Well, guess what? There's one. There is one. This is it. Like,
since we had that conversation, though, now you mention it, did they not bring out that ad campaign that's like, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox, and everything's an Xbox?
Yeah.
That's the difference between them and Sony, isn't it? Whereas Sony are like, no, we'll make the thing for you, rather than just licensing it out. And I do wonder if going forward Microsoft have made the cannier move.
I mean, they're hoping they have. Really?
Of course they would.
And it's like one of those things where, you can start to see now. So not only do you get the cloud streaming from Game Pass Ultimate, there's now 50 games available that you can buy, and they are now cloud streamable. And the idea is eventually going to make all the games that you own of a certain vintage, so don't get everybody get excited about that and go, oh, my Xbox 360 games are going to be... It doesn't work with every Xbox 360 game. So if you try and cloud stream, some games over a certain age, it won't let you.
Oh, right.
But there is an app that is an unofficial app that someone has built that actually does that as well, called BetterX Cloud. And so there are ways and means of making that happen.
I bet that's exactly the sort of thing that someone in Microsoft Towers will be aware of that, and then they'll just buy up the developer. Well, yeah, exactly. And just put them to work. Like,
well, this is the thing. It feels like it's very strange. Even the PlayStation sort of thing that it's called XPlay, the app. I would have thought that they would have been a bit like, oh, well, maybe they're just not scared because there's not that many people, got this device. But then it's almost like, to have that there. Don't come after me, Sony. Good Lord. Just to sort of be able to say, and like I said, I don't own a PlayStation Portal. I can't sort of speak on it, and I'm sure it is an incredible device. And we set up a podcast on handheld Sonys that we really enjoy.
I mean, if you have played one, let us know.
Yeah,
because we're curious now.
Yeah. But to have that available to me is, I can now access games that I was unable to access. That I previously... So I've got about 10 years worth of game to catch up on since the end of sort of, PlayStation 3. But yeah, so that I just wanted to kind of get that in there, really. And it's not necessarily a review, but it's almost I've been using it, and I really, really like it. And if you can get one for the right price, and like you said about the value of, 18-wheeler trucker, like I said, same thing goes for this device. That is, if you can get one for a good value, I'd highly recommend it if you want to be able to play it on your lap or, away from your television. It's a really, really good idea. I find it very useful as a dad, as long as the kids haven't smashed it when I get home. So back to Daytona then. So it's an emulation, but it seems to be a pretty good emulation of it. And it's a complete revamp of Daytona USA from the original arcade, and also you kind of get a bit of a revamp from the Championship Circuit edition as well, from the Saturn. So, as well as 3 new tracks. So there's quite a bit of content there, really. Yeah. So when you were speaking about sort of Sega Rally and saying it hasn't got that much there, Daytona seemed to carry a bit more with it. Even then, though, it still feels a little bit of a thin experience on your own. And I'll come back to that towards the end of the review. But there was a new championship mode in store for this one, which is really cool. And basically, it's a bit like a ladder, so you have to get to a certain part of. How do I describe this? Sorry. So if there's 20 races, then you'd have to be in the top 15 after one race, top 10, etc. I still haven't cracked that, if I'm going to be honest. I've had about 10 goes at that, and it's over 4 races, and I think the highest I finished is like 6th. It's pretty fucking hard. One thing that I gained through playing Daytona again as a home console experience was to give it more respect as an actual racing game. When I play it on the cab, I act like a twat, and I just ram into walls and go as fast as I can. I feel the absolute need for speed that is in when I'm playing that game, and I love crashing to a wall in Daytona and watching your boxy car do a weird barrel roll and then tons of smoke billowing out your bonnet. Just like, I love that so much. It's one of my favourite parts, but it's not the right way to play the game. You're not gonna get that time extension that you need. So this really, to sit down and play it and actually think about it and give it more respect for, you have to drift around this corner and take your finger off the throttle a little bit and sort of, drive as an actual human probably would. That was really good to kind of get that sort of, that feeling. This also had, and disappointingly I didn't realise this, but so it's playable online for up to 4 people, and it had Ghosts information sharing, but that wasn't available as on the PAL version.
Oh, right.
Which is a bit crazy, really. There is currently, I read this in Time Extension last year, currently a way that if you have a Dreamcast, that you can play online. So somebody has brought back online servers for Daytona USA on the actual Dreamcast as well. So I couldn't do that through any of this emulation or anything, but that would be interesting to know that you can get back on, and challenge 3 other people to a Daytona race. So I think that this also had split screen as well, so that was important to know that you could do that, because if the PAL version you were by yourself and you couldn't do split screen, at least that'd be disappointing in the maximum. So funnily enough, the soundtrack isn't exactly the same on this version as it is on the arcade or the original version. I know it's not the same songs, since there's no Daytona, so it's like you turn it on, you're like, when's that going to happen? It doesn't, but it has, I would say, serviceable enough remixes of sort of Daytona style songs on there. So it sounds like Daytona.
Daytona,
Tony Day. So it works. It works enough. You after a little while, you're not that bothered about it. But when I first got onto it, I was a bit like, come on. Come on.
Gonna get to the iconic bit.
Yeah. No.
Oh dear.
I'm genuinely going to have to knock a point off it for that, because I think that it's so important. The one thing I always notice about Daytona as well is that, and I get that there has to be sort of some compromise, but I love that the cars are the worst polygonic graphics ever, yet the backgrounds are vibrant and lush and amazing, and it's funny to see, even in 2001 compared to the 1994-95 versions, Dreamcast, it's still the same. It was almost like they just chose to keep the shit car looking terrible. They were like, we can't lose the Daytona car. It's just even if so.
Don't mess with perfection.
But this is what you were saying in the last podcast, where you were sort of saying where you just have a mood almost that is in, and that's what you've got on it. It's almost like you keep the Sega Rally, you keep the Daytona. It's not. You're not designing it to be the Dirt Rally 2. Do you know what I mean? You design it just to stay looking exactly the same. And because it does this to me and you, where you're like, that's the feeling, you're like, I know what I'm playing and I know that I like it.
Yeah.
I did choose to try and get into some real life competition. I've mentioned his name before, previously a couple of weeks ago. So Gary Gill Gaming, is an Amiga specialist, if you will, on Instagram and in the Retro Slice gaming community. So I tried to set up a Retro Slice gaming challenge for this.
Very nice.
But only me and Gary took it up.
Okay,
but that was
still counts.
But exactly, because it was quite exciting. So we chose to go on, I think it's called Desert City, and just basically try and get a fastest time, really. And it was the exact same thing that we've been through previously with our competitions and stuff. Start off with terrible times, but the good thing about this is it's like a free roam mode where you can just do as many laps as you want, and you start to just get your speed up and just exercise it. So we got down to 49 seconds. There was 1400th of a second that divided us. I did to get that to, and sorry Gary, I won by 1400ths of a second. It took me 28 laps to just get like. I mean that's like only one sitting. Like, I must have tried it about like 20 times, but the one that I cracked it on, it's like the 28 laps just going and just thinking, no, fuck that corner, no, I've done this wrong, I've done that wrong, and it's just like, and that's what I meant about having more respect for Daytona, is that there's little things in there, little tweaks that you can make. I looked up if there's any sort of speed runs of it, like in terms of, and there's a person that's done it in 43 seconds, but he's literally the only dude that's got a score on that speed run, so I'm coming after you, chap in Italy. So in general, whilst I've been probably really effusive about this, I still, and I said I was going to come back to this, but I still felt like a bit of a thin experience, and it definitely feels like Daytona belongs in the arcade for me, almost. That is in probably just a sort of gut feeling inside me. I enjoyed having the competition I had with Gary. I enjoyed having Daytona in my home, but probably just not as much as I do sitting in a cab with the music blaring in my face and the big brash bold Daytona isms going on. It just, I don't know, like, I felt it was, I'm going to go back to sort of the party sort of analogies and stuff we had the last couple of weeks and things. It's just like, it felt like the height of the party for me, but very quickly I was like, I need to go home now. I was like, it's 11:30, it's bedtime, all right. And it was just sort of, very quickly, I think a lot of the nostalgic sheen kind of wore off, and a lot of that I think that if I was playing on a Dreamcast and playing multiplayer and kind of like, we've got this community going again and stuff, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is really exciting and stuff. But even with the competition I was having with Gary, it's almost like, even once that had been put aside, I was like, I kind of played on it a bit, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay. The championship mode kept me going a little while, but it is tough. It is tough, weirdly enough. So after doing so many circuits, if you will, it kind of just starts to all feel the same. So yeah, I feel really bad giving it this score, but I think it's probably just right, and it is specific to this version. Probably a 6 out of 10, I think. But a positive 6 out of 10. Much like 18-wheeler truck. I can't even name it. USA wheelie trucky man. A positive score, even if it sounds a little low. And definitely, if you want a little bit of Daytona back in your life, you could do worse than just having a bit of a sort of emulation of this, especially this version, because it's got the most in it.
Yeah.
That I know of. But yeah,
nice. It is on the spreadsheet.
Cool. You did your talking like an AI person again.
Yeah, story of my life. Well, not my life. That'd be weird. But like, yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Next time, I want to try my hand at Formula One racing, and Do I detest Formula One? Maybe.
I do.
Yeah. I probably do. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think it's really dull.
Yeah. So, and I've not played a Formula One video game for a long time. So, but yeah, I'm going to go back and try and have a look at a few of the first ones and see what that was like.
God, you know what? I don't think I've played one since the N64.
See, that's the thing, isn't it?
Jeez.
So yeah, let's see how that goes. Right. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.